Now it's our turn to, sorry for the words, but put our balls on the table.
Remember, kids, this is not how you play hockey. It's just ugly.
I like it.
Screw you guys. I'm going in.
You know what? I love ice cream too.
Go back to Canada, Guy Lafleur.
Game on!
Yeah, game on.
Hello and welcome in to another edition of the Hockey Show. Ryan Bolding holding it down in here in the studio with just Danny Bailey on my end. We're in the Winnipeg-esque frozen tundra of Denver. And my co-host today is the infamous Mike Chambers of the Denver Post. Mike is holding us down from New York City. Mike, how's it going?
I'm good, Ryan. I think the word infamous, though, I think that means something bad.
It can mean something good, like you're so well known. You're not quite famous, but well known.
I think I'm going to look that up because I think it well, I don't know. I'm going to look it up. But, yeah, I'm doing fine, Ryan. Thanks for having me, buddy.
I didn't want to say legendary because I said that with Terry last week, and that's the first thing that came to mind. So infamous was my fallback. Yeah,
legendary is a bit much, I think.
We'll say ruggedly handsome Mike Chambers.
I'll take it.
Mike, I know you're not a betting man, but if for the sake of fun, do you have any hockey games on today that you would say I would expect this team to win?
No, because I'm all about Army-Navy.
Today is the Army-Navy game, and why are you all about that?
I'm in New York, I'm in Jersey right now. My son is a plebe at West Point, and with the Avalanche trip ending in New York on Wednesday, I decided to take a couple days off and see my boy and check out this Army-Navy stuff. He had a hockey game last night, Army-Navy. He didn't play because he's nursing a concussion, but that game was a lot of fun, and today I'm going to do a little pregame Army-Navy here in MetLife Stadium around. I do not have tickets, and I've got a 5 o'clock flight, but I'm going to check it out pregame. I'm watching it on TV right now. It looks like a blast.
How do you expect this to compare to like a Keystone NHL event, like an outdoor game?
Well, I was talking to some guys, some folks that I met on the road last night, and they said that it's not just the game. The game starts at 3 o'clock Eastern. It's not just the game and what happens during the game. It's what happens 3 hours before the game and the flyovers and the tailgates and the pageantry and stuff like that. So I'm excited to leave the hotel and check that out a bit. But I just heard it's a bucket list thing, and I'm kind of half bucket listing it today. But next year, hopefully, I'm going to go to the game as well.
What do you think odds are you get a ticket and you go in and catch part of it?
Hey, man, if someone wants to give me a ticket, I think they're going for like $200. But I don't know. I just didn't want to pay for a ticket to stay in the first quarter, and that's it. So I don't know. If I get a ticket, I'll go in.
Yeah, that'd be a tough $200. I've got some morning money lines that I bet on this morning. I went for a parlay because we all know I can't resist that. We have this morning, at least on DraftKings, hit us up for a sponsorship, DraftKings. I got Carolina at plus 100 versus Edmonton. Seems like they're expecting a little bit of a toss-up in that game, which is decent money. A lot of bad odds today. A lot of teams expected to blow out some teams. So the other half of the parlay is I've got Columbus at plus 130 versus Seattle. Mike, do you think either of those teams stand a chance of winning? I know Seattle hasn't been, super stellar this season. They've been all right lately.
The one thing is it's embedded in my mind is Kyle Keefe of Altitude today or last night tweeted out that the Avalanche have more goals than a bunch of teams, like 15 or 18 teams. And that included the Wild, the Kraken, the Wild, a good team, the Kraken, a bad team. But when I think we'll talk about this in the show, about the Avs scoring pace. But right now, any team below the Avalanche is way down there.
Yeah.
I guess that's the I really these other teams in the league I'm not following. I'm following the Wild a lot because I think that is a potential huge matchup in the Central. But I think the Kraken stink, and I think there's a lot of stinky teams in the league. But certainly the Avs and the Wild are way up there right now.
When just looking at it, the Wild have a goals for of 101, and the Avs have a goals for of 106. So while you sit there and think, wow, the Avs have been scoring a lot lately, Minnesota, they're not pulling away from Minnesota either.
Yeah, Minnesota's been pretty consistent, and that's probably the biggest fear for Avalanche fans is they've just been rock solid the whole time. So. Again, I think it's going to be a great Central Division matchup this season.
We'll get into that in a little bit. I want to first talk about some changes we've seen around the league. It's not surprising given what was happening in Vancouver, but GM Jim Benning was let go, and what was weird about it was they immediately brought in former Carolina and Pittsburgh general manager Jim Rutherford to kind of stabilize the ship. Is that strange that they haven't really announced him as like the full-time GM? They're just kind of bringing him in at the interim, like an interim GM from outside the organization?
Well, he's an old captain. He's been around the league a long time. He's very respected. I don't think he wants, well, I shouldn't speak for him, but at his age and his career, I doubt that he wants the full-time pressure of being a GM, especially in Canada. But I think they're bringing him in to kind of calm the water right now and gauge what's going on and make the right decision about who's going to be full-time moving forward.
I've only met Rutherford once when I was working for the Avalanche. Somebody who had formerly worked for Carolina brought him up to the front office, and I was the only one up there. And so all of a sudden, Jim Rutherford's here looking for Joe Sakic, and I have to go scramble, running around the building trying to find Joe Sakic to get him to come upstairs. So I was in.
And we know
mode.
that's hard to do. I mean, finding Joe Sakic, he a lot of times he doesn't want to be found, right?
Yeah. I know all the secrets and the tricks, but I found him. He was in the building. It was pregame. It wasn't just like, a random Tuesday or something. But
you're going to have to tell me some of those tricks, buddy.
Yeah. I will. I'll let you in offline. The other aspect of that was Travis Green was fired. I find this interesting. I guess, you need a new voice in the locker room when things are going that badly, but he's kind of a, new guard type of coach. It seemed like a lot of people really like his ideas and respect him, and he's replaced for an old guard guy in Bruce Boudreau, who, the people who know him personally, he's a great guy, but it seems like, kind of a more of the same in the NHL type of coach.
Yeah, well, I think that the writing on the wall with Green was there for weeks, if not a month. And I think that they were really patient with him, hoping that the Canucks were going to turn it around. And obviously that never happened. So they brought in Bruce, who is familiar with this kind of thing. And, he gave up a good gig on TV, but coaching is in his blood. I don't think that he's trying to do another long-term coaching gig, but certainly he's someone who can help that organization and just, as you said, just change the voice a little bit.
I know that, there's 32 head coaching jobs in the NHL, so they're tight. And like you said, coaching's in his blood. If it were a similar situation, let's say you got hired to help bring in, shore up a failing sports department in a formerly proud newspaper, would you do it, or do you feel like the task is so daunting, trying to climb back out of the basement?
Wow, that's a tough question, buddy. I mean, formerly, we're still selling newspapers, though, right? I mean, if we weren't doing okay, why would we be printing papers?
Yeah.
So,
I don't necessarily mean the Post. I'm just saying, let's say, the Vancouver Sentinel fake newspaper, their sports department's in the dumps, and they're like, we're going to bring Mike Chambers in to fix it up. Is that something you'd look forward to doing, or do you feel like, oh, here we go, why can't I ever get a coaching job for a team that's good?
I I see where you're going on this, Ryan. I wasn't actually expecting it, but now I see it. And I'm glad you asked the question, because if I was trying to rebuild something from I'm in my mid 50s, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in this racket for 20 some years, 25 years. I would go old school. So yes, if I wanted to turn something around and do it the right way, I would go old school. I would hire a very experienced old school coach to do it the right way. And I mean that, and I love the analogy that you're trying to make, because there really is a lot of, I guess, interest and acknowledgement that when you want to turn something around, you want to do it the right way, you want to do it the grassroots way, and sometimes these new GMs don't realize the hard work that goes into starting something and the right way to do it. So yeah, I would go old school too. So I would probably bring in these two old guys in Vancouver as well.
It makes you kind of appreciate at least what Jared Bednar has been able to accomplish. You know, he obviously had a legacy of coaching in the minors, but the fact that he came into a bad situation with no preparation, had a real bad year, and then has this team where they are now, you know, there's definitely a way to infuse new blood into the coaching structure, I think, and still have guys who can reach the players. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Every year, Bednar's not even in the conversation of coach of the year, and I just don't understand. He's at the forefront of my mind. He's what he's done, especially the first year. He made the playoffs a year after that horrid 22-win, 48-point season. I think right that was coach of the year material right there. I mean, obviously they weren't going to go far in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs, and it was a good series against Nashville. I mean, that season alone proved that Bednar is something special, and ever since he's affirmed that. He's a fantastic coach, and as you know, Ryan, he's a fantastic person. He's a great guy to deal with. I think we're lucky covering the Avalanche partly because of Jared Bednar. He's such a great guy. He gives us what we need. And I respect the heck out of him.
I've been kind of hesitant to, vote and think about Coach of the Year after Patrick Waugh won Coach of the Year and seemed deserving at the time, but then the wheels really just kind of started falling off. So I like to look at more of a legacy when it comes to Coach of the Year, and I think you're right. Legacy has proven that Bednar is a very capable coach, and I would say that Joe Sakic deserves a lot of credit for construction of the team as well. But we're going to have a break right here, and we'll come back with more Mike Chambers and some specific Avalanche talk after the break.
Right now, it's 16 minutes past the big hour. Is that not right, Mr. Scream? Great, good stuff. I think people are getting really cranked.
Welcome back to the Hockey Show. A little disturbed to bring us in to talk about a little bit of Colorado Avalanche domination. Mike, we started talking about it at the break, but the Avs are kind of scoring at an unprecedented pace, it feels like. They've had 3 straight games with 7 goals. They're averaging 4.3 goals a game. Like, what is going on offensively for this team right now?
Well, I think it's partly generated by this fantastic D-core that understands what it is. It is elite. It is, and even without Bo Byram. I mean, you add Bo Byram, and it's even more elite. But I was going to say, my Sunday column is typically due on Fridays, so I filed my Sunday column yesterday in advance of the game against the Wings, and I wrote that the Avs are the first team since 95-96 to score to reach 7 goals in a single game 5 times within their first 25 games, and only 3 other teams have ever done that in the last 35 years. So it was an amazing scoring, and then what do? They go out against the Wings and score another 7 goals. So I think my column still stands up for Sunday, but it's even more powerful now. And it's just incredible and historical in a lot of sense. I mean, if you think about it, that was 26 years ago, the Avs' inaugural season, the last time a team did what the Avs are doing in terms of scoring 7 goals in a game. So it's something else, but I do think that it's mostly generated or partly by the defensive core that is just so active. And obviously Cale Makar leads it all, but Devon Toews is similarly awesome. Sam Girard is dynamite, and Eric Johnson and Jack Johnson. It's just a really incredible blue line, and I can't say enough about it. I mean, in terms of the offense that it's producing.
I think on the back end is Devon Toews maybe one of the best acquisitions made, maybe in the history of the team.
Yes, and yes, based on the fact that we sat there and said, well, what? We got Cale Makar and Sammy G and why do you need Toews, who is kind of that same player? Well, 2 second-round draft picks was a bargain. He's grossly underpaid. The TSN and the Olympic Canadian team projection came out the other day in Canada, and Toews wasn't even on there. I mean, he's a total. I don't even know if he's an afterthought. But McKinnon told us a couple weeks ago that he thinks the pairing of Toews and Makar is the best in the NHL, and I think I buy that. I think I really do. I think the left-right shot and just everything that they can do in terms of skating and feeding the forwards and scoring themselves and defending, I do think that there's some merit in that it might be the top pairing in the league.
So when it comes to planning the parade, do fans need to pump the brakes a little bit? Because, and I want to know how the Avalanche got away with this scheduling-wise, they played 3 games this week against teams on the second of their back-to-backs.
Second on their back-to-back.
Yeah, so Philly, they were in Philly waiting for
yeah.
Philly. They were in New York waiting for the Rangers, and then Detroit played the night before as well.
Oh, I think you should pump the brakes. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I was in New York. I was in Philly. Philly came off they had 2 consecutive home games, but they got plowed by Tampa Bay 7-1 on Sunday night, and then met the Avs and got plowed again, and had a coaching change in the middle of that. So, and then Detroit, as you mentioned, they had travel, and then the Rangers also had travel because they played the Avs a night after playing in Chicago. So certainly, I think that what you're saying has a lot of merit. I mean, the Avs have scored a lot of goals, but they've also scored their last 3 against very tired teams.
Yeah, and just looking at it, it makes me wonder, and I wonder if you're feeling the same way. Are the Avalanche capable of, kind of outscoring the discrepancy in goaltending that they're having? They've scored 7 goals in 3 straight games, but they've been giving up goals too. The Minnesota, I mean, they still have a great goal differential because it's so inflated, but Minnesota has given up 8 fewer goals this season so far than the Avs have.
Well, I think Minnesota's playing more of the game that both teams prefer to play, and that's not playing a shootout, and that's being tight in the D zone and scoring enough goals to win. And I was with the Avs up until the other day in New York, and a lot of guys in Bednar were talking about the fact that this is not how we want to play. We want to play a tight defensive zone game and again, score enough goals to win. So, yeah, the scoring's great, but the defense hasn't been great. The goaltending hasn't been outstanding, and I think that they really, really, really are looking to tighten things up in the D zone.
I got to kind of follow that up. I got two goalie topics to talk about. And the first one, I have to ask, have you ever seen more equipment malfunctions with any player, let alone a goalie, in your entire career covering the NHL than Darcy Kemper has had just this season?
No. I asked him in New York, I said, buddy, what's going on with these malfunctions? And he just laughed and he says, I don't know. I've never had them ever in my career, ever playing hockey. So I think you just got to take his word for it. It's just a fluke thing. It's really odd that it's happening in the NHL. Come on. I mean, every piece of equipment on these guys is state of the art. But it's interesting. It's a little bit alarming, and it's kind of funny at the same time.
I know you wonder, is it him? Is it the equipment? Is it the equipment staff? Like the skate malfunctions he's having, I don't know how it's not a brand new skate the second game. You know, you're at home, you've got all the equipment there. The pad, I don't know, maybe it was, a manufacturing, deficiency or something, but just the strangest stuff I can recall ever seeing in, consecutively. Like maybe across a guy's career he's had some problems, but not like this.
No, I've never seen it before, Ryan. It's again, it borderlines on funny.
Well, yeah, just seeing him skate off the ice with one leg pad on with his skinny little leg sticking out is hilarious. The other one I wanted to get to is Pavel Francouz. He's obviously coming back, doing some rehab in the AHL with the Eagles. Didn't have a great first game, but, what do you expect out of him? I know Jonas Johansson's been, fine in replacement, but, how does this team look when a fully healthy Francouz is back in the lineup?
Well, at the start of the year, Joe Sakic and Bednar both said that this is the deepest goaltending depth we've had in our tenure there, including Sakic since 2013. It started off great. It was a good plan, but it's been a wreck. It's been a wreck.
Yeah.
Kemper has not been great. And Frankie has been hurt. Now, almost his entire NHL career has been defined around injuries. And so looking forward, who knows? I mean, if you judge on the past, Frankie's going to go down again. So I think it's unsettling. I do think that they have some decent depth with Johansson, but certainly goaltending right now with this team is not amongst their strength. In fact, I think it's their only weakness.
And it's kind of hidden by all the offense that's going on. You were there for Eustace's start. What did you think about how he looked? I thought he looked, shaky, that the team scored enough goals to get him the win, but he kind of fell into a groove late.
Yeah, Claude Giroux had two really good shots. Probably could have beat most goalies, but I forget if it was the second or third goal allowed. I think it was the second. He just wasn't tight against the post, and Philly made a nice play and squeezed it inside the near post. And I'm no goaltending expert, but that to me looked like he's just not ready for the quickness at this level. But he's a 21-year-old kid. He's going to get better. He's going to get a lot of good coaching. So I think that the jury is still out on him. I mean, he might be the goaltender of the future on this club, and he might not. We just have to wait and see.
And how much has Kadri benefited from the absence of Nathan MacKinnon? I know he's kept it up. Now that McKinnon's back, he's obviously missed the last game with an injury, but I mean, he's been kind of an unreal driver of this offense for a little period of time here.
Yeah, what's going on with Kadri is weird, and I was asked on another interview the other day, like, what's up with this guy? And the only thing I can think is he wants a big contract next year. I mean, he doesn't have a contract, and he's going to be a free agent, and right now someone's going to throw a lot of money at him the way that he's going. But if it was based on what he did last season, I think he had a stretch there that he didn't score a goal in like 29 games. something's going on with that guy, but he looks like a superstar, not just a solid NHL center. I think that his lower body injury is kind of a nagging injury because he was scratched in Ottawa. He and McCarr didn't play, and I think Kadri just has a nagging injury that is bothering him, and I think that that's why he's been out. But I don't think it's serious. I think that he's going to be back soon, and we'll just have to see how that goes.
Is there a pathway here for the Avs to sign him? Like you said, the way he's playing, he's going to make some money, or is he going to be the next guy that ends up, in Seattle or with the Blues?
Well, I think you got to look back if you're Joe Sakic and say, all right, our entire second line, or our typical second line of Kadri, Nichushkin, and Burakovsky are all UFAs. Which one are we going to sign? Because we can't sign all three.
Right.
So maybe they sign two, but I think that they're waiting and just seeing who's got the most value at what salary in the future. And I think right now it's probably going to be Nichushkin based on his age. Burakovsky, not so much because of his defensive liabilities, but I don't know. I think Sakic and his staff are just waiting and seeing how it all plays out, and then they will make the offers from there. But I do think that they might sign one of those guys, or perhaps two of them, before they can become a UFA.
That's Mike Chambers joining me here on the Hockey Show on Mile High Sports Radio. Ryan Bolden, your host. We hope JJ had a great cruise. He's not here. Hopefully he'll be here next week. I'm sure he'll be tan, refreshed. We'll be talking more hockey when we come back after the break.
Let's go, Colorado!
Welcome back to the Hockey Show. I love a little System of a Down in the morning. Danny, you know me so well. I used to work a job.
My best.
I used to work a job at a gas station, and I'd have to open at 5:30 in the morning, and I didn't drink coffee at the time, so I would just blast punk rock or like System of a Down, and people would come in and say, "Do you have to play it so loud?" And the answer is yes. Yes, I do. But we're back. I know I said we were going to get away from the Avalanche, but the one last thing I wanted to talk about, Mike, how special is it to see Peter McNabb inducted to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame?
God, I wish I was there, man. I wish I was there. That was one event that I really wanted to cover and support my friend. A friend is so many. A legendary hockey player from San Diego, from Denver. He's Canadian as well. I think he was born in Vancouver. But he calls himself an American. He basically grew up in America. He's just such a kind, gentle, sweet man. Regardless of what people think of how he calls games or in terms of an analyst or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's trust me, he is just a superb human being, and everybody should appreciate the fact that the Avalanche have someone that is so esteemed and so historical relevant to be part of that organization. And he's just a great guy, and I really wish I was there on Thursday, but unfortunately I wasn't. I'm very proud of Peter, and I think he's got so much love and support in this life. That's the one thing that I think is carrying him through his cancer treatment is the fact that he realizes what a good person he is and how much he's loved.
And he's so knowledgeable. He's a man that has many stories. Whenever I talk to him, he always has something interesting to say. You could ask him about the minutia of something, and he'll have something to talk to you about it. You could ask him about the big picture stuff. He'll have something to say about it. Actually, I think this is outstanding timing for him, going through his cancer treatment and everything. For a tall man with a good head of hair, he actually looks pretty good bald. I got to give him that.
Yeah, well, I don't think he does. I don't think he thinks that. But, a thing that you were just talking about, his expertise, well, so many times in the last 20 years, Peter's at most practices. And I want to be next to Peter, and I want to pick his brain on things because he's got so many things to say outside of what he says on TV.
Yep.
And he's just so knowledgeable. So I try to lean on Peter a lot, sit by him at practices. And a couple of weeks ago, he had just gone through a chemo treatment, and I sat next to him, and he says, "Hey, Mike, I need a little space." And he had his mask on and stuff, but he said it very, very politely, like, I'm vulnerable. I can't be close to a person. So I moved over a little bit. I put a mask on, and I made sure that I was being careful. But he was still, even in that situation, he was so happy to see me and so happy to talk hockey. And I just can't say enough about his expertise about the game and what kind of human being he is. So I think we should all be praying for Peter.
Definitely love to see him going through it, and hopefully he comes out the other side free and clear. And major congratulations to Peter for that accomplishment, being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Changing gears, we got the NHL Board of Governors meetings this week. A couple tidbits coming out of there. I don't know how much you pay attention to that stuff. Have you ever gone and covered the Board of Governors?
I have not, no.
I mean, who would turn down a nice little trip to Florida in the wintertime? Although it's been so nice here, it hardly matters. But one of the things coming out, the salary cap is expected to go up, $1 million?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the difference that keeps Kadri in Denver. You never know.
Yeah, well, I think the big issue there is the sending the players to the Olympics. Ryan, I keep on hearing that that's not going to happen for a lot of reasons, for makeup games and just COVID in general, especially in China. So I think that's the biggest issue on the Governors, on the entire league. I think that's their biggest concern right now.
Well, let's get into it. What do you think? I mean, so Gary Bettman comes out and says it's in the players' hands. We have agreed to this concession, and we're going to stand by that decision. We're not necessarily high on this concept, but we're going to stand by it, and it's kind of in the players' hands. We know that's not 100% the truth. The NHL can make a decision here, but I think, it's interesting on two levels. One, it gives the appearance of giving the players some control over the situation, but two, I think it puts a little pressure on the players for if this goes south, it was their decision to make.
Yeah, well, I think if the players get educated on the COVID situation in China, I don't think it's going to be a lot of fun going there and playing, because it's going to be basically another lockdown of sorts, and it's not going to be as fun as it normally would be. I think that's going to be a big factor in that vote, but I think the league in itself, in terms of making up games and extending the season so deep, I mean, they do have two schedules. One, if they go to the Olympics, and the other one if they don't. And if you look at the schedule, it just makes so much sense not to go and complete the season normally and finish the playoffs at a regular time. I just think after all the COVID things, that the problems from the last 2 years, I think that the players and the teams just want to have a normal season, and sending your players to the Olympics is not a normal. It's 3 weeks out of the season, and I just think that they're going to. I've been told by a team executive and a couple scouts that they don't think it's going to happen, and they've got inside knowledge, and based on what I just told you, so I don't expect it to happen. I think it would be fun if it did, but man, I think it's going to be tough to go at this point.
Well, I love watching Olympic hockey. These kind of dream teams, super teams from the powerhouse countries. I love watching, Slovenia play and see how they stack up, right? I love watching Switzerland play and seeing how they do. Germany, you got Leon Draisaitl leading the charge. You got Grubauer. Like, I love that. And normally, I think, the Olympic environment, for those who don't know, and I don't know how you couldn't know, is a bit of a wild bacchanal, right? People are at their peak fitness. They're young, they're attractive, they're competing, they're partying, they're having a good time behind the scenes, and none of that is really possible in a COVID landscape. In the country where COVID originated, I think there's always concern about how truthful China is with the state of the pandemic there, and then potentially having to miss games on the back end. If you were to get a positive COVID diagnosis, you have to stay there for 3 weeks before you can even come back.
And that plays into everything I was talking about. There's just so many uncertainties. I mean, the United States isn't even sending any dignitaries to the Olympics. It's just, I just think it's a year that things aren't great. The players aren't going to have the fun that they want to have over there, and I just think it's dangerous in a way.
I believe China is not sending any dignitaries either. I've been very vocal about not having the Olympics in China due to the human rights atrocities occurring there. So I would be fine with hockey players not going. I wish it was for a better reason, but I'm okay with it either way. I don't want to see anybody get sick. I don't want to see subpar, competition, and I don't really want to see China prosper from the benefit of all this exposure either. That's kind of where I'm at on it.
I agree with everything you said, bro.
So now something else that comes out of these Board of Governors meetings is the NHL is set up a hotline to report abuses. Actually 2 lines, one for the league specifically, and they're working on another one for all tiers of hockey outside of the NHL, to report abuses, things like the Kyle Beach situation with Chicago. Do you feel like this is on point? Is it, a little too late? Are they kind of, playing catch up here?
I think it's on point. I don't think it's too late. I think Bob Murray, anybody that had spent any time with Bob Murray over the years, probably wasn't too sad to see him go down because of this. He got flagged internally, and he lost his job as GM of the Ducks. I had a run-in with Bob Murray in the early 2000s. I just don't think that he's a healthy guy and should be leading an organization like that, from what I know, from what I've seen. Again, I'm not around the guy a lot, but I thought that program, what it's designed to do, I think the Bob Murray situation is a perfect example of why it works.
And do you feel like, it's unfortunate that the league has to put something in place that organizations can't be trusted to maybe thoroughly investigate and vet these situations on their own?
Well, I think that this problem exists in every part of our society, and I think that there should be steps in place, like internally, but unfortunately, those internal problems sometimes are not manageable because of threats and people losing their jobs if they speak up. So the NHL program is you can speak up and not risk losing your job, and I think that's important.
I don't know if you saw this, Mike, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Player agent Alan Walsh is very outspoken on Twitter, recently launched his own podcast. He said that certain NHL senior executives have been threatening to withhold access to leading members of the hockey media behind the scenes over the coverage of the Kyle Beach scandal. What do you think about the possibility of the NHL kind of, having repercussions for those chasing this story down?
Well, I think that's the problem with our journalism today and the reason why I'm going to pump the tires of my employer over the last 25 years is the grassroots traditional media, the big newspapers of the world are trained and we are truth seekers. I mean, imagine a world that we didn't have anybody going to a Congress meeting or a city hall and reporting on what they're doing and really investigating on if they're telling the truth and stuff. So I think that strong, aggressive journalism is the key to our society in terms of truth. And any attempt by the NHL to put down any of these media who reported on the Kyle Beach thing, I think that's just awful. And I think that someone in the NHL has to sit back and say, yeah, we cannot do this. This is not our democracy. Major media is important, and God, in my lifetime, I hope it never goes away. And I have to applaud the guy. I can't think of his name right now, but the guy in Canada,
Rick Westhead.
Rick Westhead. God bless him, right? I mean,
incredible work.
He's a hero, and some people want to put him down. He did his job, and he did his job masterfully, and he exposed a very serious situation that is being resolved now. And I'm so glad for Kyle Beach and his family because he deserves it. And Rick Westhead is a hero in my mind.
I'm with you there. This is the Hockey Show on Mile High Sports Radio. We're going to go into the break, and then we'll be back with the mixed bag skate. Ryan Bolden in here with Mike Chambers.
I play hockey and I fornicate because those are the two most fun things in cold weather.
Welcome back to the Hockey Show. I feel like I've been joking every week that it hasn't been cold weather, and now it is. And I just want to go home and get under the blankets. It is definitely hockey weather out there, though. Mike, how is it out in New Jersey?
It's overcast. It's kind of gloomy, but it's, I'm sure, a great atmosphere at the stadium. I'm excited to go over there right now.
A lot of electricity in the air, you would say?
Oh, yeah. I checked into my hotel last night here, and it was just a party in the first floor. And mostly Navy or mostly Army people, too, so it was good.
Interesting.
Go Army, beat
Interesting.
Navy.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so this is the mixed bag skate, and I'm going to come up with some topics. I'm going to kind of read a sentence, and I'm going to put a blank in there. I'm going to have you fill in the blank with whatever you want, okay?
I got you.
So the first one I have is, excuse me, Jack Eichel skating alone 3 weeks after neck surgery is blank.
Bad sign for the Avalanche.
Right? It's incredible to me that this guy could have a disc replacement surgery and be back on the ice in 3 weeks. You know, I know they say 3 to 4 months to return, but maybe that's a more conservative estimate.
Yeah, the fact that he can't take contact, obviously, and he's got to be careful, and he's in rehab, right?
Yep.
There's a reason why he can't play hockey for 3 or 4 months because he can't take contact, but you know, you're trusting that guy to not fall on the ice. Obviously, he's a great skater, and you wouldn't expect that he would fall on the ice, but the fact that they're even doing that is impressive. Everybody can lose an edge, and I don't know, but it's a bad sign for the Avalanche because this is a player the Avalanche wanted. They didn't get him, and certainly Vegas at the end of the day is going to be a major obstacle in the Western Conference playoffs. There's no doubt about it. And when he comes back, certainly that team's going to be better.
Marc-Andre Fleury becoming the third goalie to reach 500 wins is blank.
Quebec awesomeness. In my column for Sunday, I wrote a little bit about Brodeur, Waugh, and Fleury, and all three of them come from Quebec. Three of arguably the greatest goalies of all time. Certainly the three winningest goalies of all time are all from one Canadian province.
What do they got? Poutine, smoked meats, and goaltenders in the NHL?
Maybe it might be the goaltending coaches. I don't know, but you can't understand what they're saying.
That's it. They just have their own language, their own goalie whispering language there. I think it's incredible, you know, that he's up there with those two players, Brodeur and Waugh, and you maybe still doesn't get the credit he deserves for being such a good goaltender. Even now, when he started the season with Chicago, I thought, oh, the poor guy, he's just on a bad team. Things are looking bad. He's not playing well. But he's kind of turned it around. He's looking like his old self again.
Yeah, and that Canadian report about the Olympic team, apparently he might be their number one guy. And Canada admits that that's their only weakness in terms of the roster is goaltending. Darcy Kemper is number 2 on that list, and then Binnington third. But if you look at those 3 guys, like it really doesn't stand out like it used to, say with Carey Price or Fleury in his 20s.
Right.
So I think that, Fleury could be the number one guy for Team Canada if they play in China. So,
which they're
he's
not.
had a heck
right?
of a career.
Because we both know they're not going now.
Well, still, he's still a big name in the game at age 37. And if he signs his next contract, he could catch Watt 551 wins. But I don't think anybody's going to catch Brodeur.
Every time I look at that number, 691 wins Brodeur
Crazy.
had. It's
Crazy.
It's like unfathomable amount of games.
Yeah, if you think about how good Patrick Waugh's career is, and then add another 140 some games, that's just that's incredible.
Finding out that the Arizona Coyotes are at an impasse with Glendale is the blank surprising thing I've heard of in the last 5 years.
Least surprising thing?
Yeah. I know Gary Bettman stepped out and said the Coyotes aren't going anywhere, and then, kind of tongue-in-cheek said, except for somewhere else in Phoenix. But the city of Glendale says they haven't paid 17 months' worth of taxes.
Yeah, but they came out, I think, yesterday, and Arizona said that no, everything is up to date, and our books are good. But regardless of that, like, where are they going to play after the lease is up in Glendale after 2022? So there's a lot of questions with that organization. I mean, if they can't build a arena closer to Phoenix, I don't see a long lifeline there. And I keep on hearing Houston. I think I would prefer Kansas City, but Houston, Kansas City, and there might be a slight chance that they open the door for Quebec because Bettman is going up there to meet for expansion purposes. But, if Arizona doesn't work out in Arizona, Quebec might be an option. But again, I'm hearing Houston as well.
Terry Fry was on last week, and we talked a bit about Kansas City fandom. I don't understand the Houston thing. Do you think Texas is a state that would support 2 NHL hockey teams?
I do, because they're great sports fans, and I think the NHL realizes what a great job they did in Dallas and to grow hockey in Dallas, and I think that they can do the same in Houston.
All right. That's kind of all I had for today on the hockey show. I think we've hit about everything we could have this week.
I got one for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go Army, beat Navy.
Oh, I thought there was going to be a blank in there. What's your score prediction for the game?
I don't know much about the two teams.
That makes it even better. The uneducated score guess is way better. It's probably
know
going
that-
to be closer to accurate.
I know that Army's got a better record, and I'm just pulling for Army because that's where my family ties have me right now.
What do you think if the Coyotes were moved to Kansas City or Houston? Do they stay the Coyotes? What do you think they're named? Do you think they change the name to the Arrows if they're in Houston?
I think that if any team moves, relocates, they should adopt a new name. I mean, what's up with the Los Angeles Lakers? That's the dumbest name ever. Like, yeah, there's a couple lakes in Southern California, but it's a beach town, and they go by the Lakers, which used to be in Minnesota. Like, in Minnesota, that's a great name. The Minnesota or whatever, was it in Twin Cities or Minneapolis or whatever it was? But the Lakers, that's a great name for a Minnesota sports team, but it doesn't work in L.A. So I think that any team that relocates, like the Avalanche, should adopt their own name.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Basketball. I suspect not. It's kind of an obscure thing. You got to be a real Trey Parker and Matt Stone fan to have seen that movie. But it makes me think of this hilarious bit they have about relocation at the beginning and, stadium corporate sponsor names. And they do this whole map about all these sports teams moving. And they say that, the Lakers moved to L.A. where they don't have lakes, and the Jazz moved to Utah where they don't allow music. That's what I think about every time.
Perfect analogies, yeah.
That'll do it on the Hockey Show. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me. I always appreciate it, and I love the work that you and JJ do.
Thank you. We love the work that you do. Hopefully I'll see you at a game here soon. And that'll do it for us here on Mile High Sports Radio. Ryan Bolding, Mike Chambers, Danny Bailey behind the glass. Legend as always. We're out of here.